Ilhan Omar finally got confronted about the infamous Quality Leering Center in Minneapolis, and she folds instantly. In fact, Ilhan gets extremely nervous anytime the reporter even mentions Somali fraud. She starts stuttering, stammering, and stumbling on her words, and even accidentally admits that new rules to prevent fraud would directly negatively impact the Somali community. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel, but let's start with the latest development in the Minnesota fraud scandal, because I think that explains why Ilhan is so nervous.
It was literally a foreign ATM taking cash out of the United States to foreign destinations, and we don't know the reason why. But that is now under investigation by the FBI and HSI. And people say, well, is this normal? I mean, maybe this goes on at every airport. We got comparative statistics yesterday. The amount of money that these Somali couriers took out of the Minneapolis airport with the TSA flagging it daily was 99 times larger than all the cash that was declared in luggage going out of New York's JFK International Airport, one of the busiest international airports in America. 99 times more than what flies out of Dallas. 90% more. 90% more than what was flown out of Seattle, which is the most common airport for people to go to Asia from. This was an abnormally high amount of cash being stuffed in the luggage, being detected every day by the TSA, because, by the way, the couriers they declared the money. They literally would say, yeah, we got $1 million in our suitcase, which you have to do to get it through the airport. And nobody in the Biden administration thought it was unusual that $1 million of cash was moving in luggage out of the country, out of Minneapolis every day. Way more than any other airport in America at the time.
Every new piece of information that comes out about this scandal makes it harder for politicians like Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar to argue that this was anything but intentional. Every rule was broken, every alarm sounded, every red flag alerted, but every politician was forced to accept it because the Somali voting bloc grew too powerful. They could either willfully ignore the fraud to receive the Somali vote and get flooded with campaign contributions, or they could try to expose the fraud, get threatened by Tim Walz, be publicly condemned as a racist, and lose their position in elected office. It was emotional extortion on the back of white liberal guilt. But let's get into this insane interview. The very first question the reporter asks Ilhan Omar is, did the woman who got shot by ICE do anything wrong? And just listen to Ilhan's response.
From the recordings that we see, is there anything that you believe was being done that should not have been done by Macklin Good? The administration says she was blocking the road. They are claiming this is an act of terrorism.
Yeah, Renee Nicole Good, as you hear her say, she's not mad. She's sitting in her car, peacefully waving cars to get by. This agent, as you see, gets out of his car, automatically starts running towards her, trying to open her door. She feels scared. She tries to turn the wheel away, and then you see the other officer, who can clearly see the car is moving, move towards the front of the car, which, if they are saying that he has 10 years on service and is trained, he should know that you shouldn't be trying to get in front of a moving car. And so it is not acceptable for Kristi Noem and the president and the vice president to make these kind of judgments without there being a full investigation, even though we can see in the videos that have been produced so far that what they are describing is really not what is taking place.
So no, she did absolutely nothing to contribute to that situation unfolding how it did. She wasn't in the wrong for spending the entire day obstructing and interfering with ICE operations. She wasn't in the wrong for parking perpendicular in the middle of a one-way street in the middle of an active ICE operation. She wasn't in the wrong for not complying with officers who gave her a lawful order to exit the vehicle, and she wasn't in the wrong for trying to recklessly flee from law enforcement and almost running over an officer. No, the blame is entirely with the officer for not cinematically diving out of the way like he's in a transporter movie. And Democrats are once again trying to insult everybody's intelligence by pretending that sarcasm doesn't exist and claiming because the woman said to the ICE ICE officer sarcastically that she wasn't mad at him, while her wife is standing there berating the ICE officer, clearly mad at him, and we should instead focus on her words of friendship and not her actual actions of trying to run over an ICE officer. But I showed you that clip first because that's a talking point Ilhan Omar is happy to engage in, and she spouts her delusional nonsense confidently. But here's where the conversation turns to Somali fraud and Ilhan Omar starts choking on her words.
Right now is a lot of heat on your state. Treasury Secretary Bessent called Minnesota ground zero for what may be the most egregious welfare scam in our nation's history to date. 85 of the 98 people who were charged by the Justice Department with this welfare scheme are Somali. And you know this. The Treasury Secretary is probing whether any of the money was somehow funneled outside the country. He actually issued new standards. He's going to make it make someone disclose if they receive public assistance when they try to wire money out of the country, and he's lowered the bar for suspicious activity. What is the practical impact of doing that in the community?
It's just creating fear. What they are doing is creating confusion, chaos, trying to intimidate people from being able to exercise their regular, normal activities that they would.
If new rules being instituted to prevent fraud creates chaos in the Somali community, you're just admitting that the entire Somali community is engaging in fraud. Restrictions to stop fraud from occurring don't impact the lives of law-abiding citizens at all. The Treasury Secretary enacted a new rule that if you receive government welfare, you are unable to wire money out of the country. It is a common sense policy that if you require government assistance, you should not have so much excess that you can casually send it abroad. But that new rule change throws a giant wrench in the collective goal of the Somali people in America, which is to be a perpetual welfare dependent, steal as much money as you can from the taxpayer, and funnel it all entirely back to Somalia. But this is where Ilhan is confronted about the Quality Leering Center and about Tim Walsh dropping out due to this massive fraud.
Because the administration and many conservative allies of the administration argue that this is still ongoing. There was that conservative influencer who went out and posted this video that went viral alleging that daycare facilities were pocketing public funds.
Yeah, and as you know, he went hours where these businesses were not operating.
Yep, CBS went out and did its own
again
investigation.
Creates the level of confusion and chaos that is not necessary in a moment when we are trying to deal with a serious problem that needs serious people to be able to address it.
But do you think there was no recorded evidence of fraud according to the CBS investigation that was conducted? But Governor Walsh did choose to not run for re-election. He dropped out of the race because of all of this.
Because he wants to focus on defending our state and not defending a seat.
Do you think there has been a sufficient level of accountability and ownership of the failure to have oversight here? Do you think this ends?
That is what we want. We want to.
She is once again intentionally spreading falsehoods because her unwavering loyalty lies with the Somali people. The Quality Leering Center was licensed from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. The narrative of its hours being 2 to 10 p.m. was only created after Nick Shirley exposed that it was empty in the middle of the day. It also had some 90 violations, which is why it was closed earlier in the year, but still received $2 million from the state of Minnesota. So after the whole thing was exposed, they tried to first change the sign to actually say learning, and then they brought in a bunch of kids to invite the dishonest mainstream media in there to push the narrative that it was a legitimate operation, even when it was still technically closed due to violations. And then the state officially announced that it was closed as of a week ago. And then she confirmed she has no idea whether the fraud is still ongoing, which we know it is because the Leering Center got $2 million while it was closed after receiving 90 violations. And then in this next clip, she complains that the federal government should continue to send Minnesota infinite money even though it's all being defrauded.
There is no justification for this search. We know that ICE has the ability to conduct raids. There is no reason to have over 2,000 people coming in to our city and creating the level of terror that they have created.
Well, the administration argues that they have to do it because the state failed to, right?
The federal government and the state have been working peacefully together and have brought justice to these 87 people that you've described. None of the search that they have conducted has produced any sort of criminal activity. They haven't been able to charge anyone as of yet.
Well, the administration also announced they're going to cut food stamps to Minnesota because they say some of the food stamp money had been embezzled here. Are you
and those are the things that are being
being
litigated, and it is, again, unconstitutional for them to do so.
Are you confident that the fraud that has been discovered is no longer being conducted now? Is there any justification for saying this food stamp money is somehow being misused?
Yeah, there are ways to investigate fraud, which we have been doing in Minnesota, which the federal government has been doing under the Biden administration. There is no reason for them to use this level of rhetoric. There is no reason for them to fully stop funding these programs.
Every blue state refused to send the federal government records of who was on federally funded welfare programs because they all want to hide the massive amount of taxpayer money that is going to pay for illegals. And in the case of Ilhan Omar's Somali constituency, we know that 89% of Somali households with a child are on some sort of welfare. That's why, in her words, it's causing so much chaos that now these welfare recipients can't wire money back to Somalia, and why the Somali community specifically is so negatively impacted by SNAP funding being canceled. It's like these blue states think everyone is entitled to bankroll the lifestyle of their illegal future Democrat voter. They promise them free stuff if they turn around and vote Democrat when they eventually gain citizenship, or even before they get citizenship, because we know in Minnesota, one U.S. citizen can advocate or endorse for 9 other people to vote. And those 9 other people aren't checked or vetted for citizenship. They just simply get advocated by one Somali who is a U.S. citizen, and they're good to go. And Democrats are offended that the American people no longer want to fund their illegal voter harvesting scheme. And she claims the Biden administration was doing its job to crack down on fraud, even though in the first clip we saw they were allowing over $1 million a day to exit the Minneapolis airport. She just wants the investigations to stop entirely, because if they continue down that rabbit hole, Ilhan Omar will eventually be implicated. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on those notification bells so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.